I came here to fish. That was the plan. A quiet lake, a worn-out cabin, and some time to remember who I was before everything cracked. But every evening, instead of casting a line, I'd end up staring at him, across the gravel, past the silence. The sheriff. Dante. His presence didn't announce itself, but it filled the air like pressure before a storm. And something in his stare caught me, steady, unreadable, as if he knew exactly why I was here, even when I didn't. No one told me running would feel like drowning. I drove until my hands stopped shaking, until Logan's voice wasn't in the rearview mirror, until I forgot the sound of apologies I was forced to give just to keep the peace. Logan, the man everyone respected, dashing, educated, always knowing the right thing to say. The kind of man who could walk into a room and bend it to his liking without raising his voice. He never hit me. That's what I used to tell myself, as if that absence proved it hadn't been real. But emotional control leaves no bruises, and words sharpened over years can cut deep enough to make you question your very existence. Logan taught me to doubt myself with a smile. Taught me that silence was safer than honesty. That love came with conditions. And when I finally said I was leaving, he simply replied, "You won't last without me." So I left. The town was small, the kind that smelled of pine and motor oil. People kept to themselves, and I needed that. No one asked questions. My name was just another whisper in a place full of ghosts. I rented a cottage on the edge of the lake. It was falling apart, but it didn't ask anything of me. For the first time in years, I wasn't performing. I wasn't pleasing. I was just existing. That should have been enough. But humans aren't built for stillness, not after the kind of silence Logan left inside me. I started walking at night, restless like my body didn't trust the calm. That's when I noticed him. Dante. He didn't belong to the town either. You could tell by the way people stepped aside when he passed, how conversations died when he entered the general store. The sheriff, technically, but not the kind you'd see at parades or smiling in photographs. He was a presence, not a person. A man who walked like his bones remembered too much. I never spoke to him. I told myself I wouldn't. I didn't need another complicated man. But he lived across the gravel road. And every night, when I walked, he'd be out there, on his porch, watching the dark. Not drinking, not smoking, just watching, like he was guarding something, or waiting. I thought it was coincidence. Then it happened again, and again, until I realized he only came outside when I did, until our eyes met more often than not. There was no smile, no wave, just a nod, a subtle acknowledgement. But in that nod, something cracked open. It was the opposite of Logan's charm. There were no words, no control, no expectation, just recognition. The simple, devastating truth of being seen. One night, I stayed out longer. I sat on the edge of the dock, water licking the shore, moonlight slicing the lake. I heard footsteps on gravel and tensed. I didn't turn, but I knew it was him. "You fish?" he asked. His voice was low, grounded, like it didn't need to prove anything. "Not really," I said. "I came here to, but I guess I got distracted." He didn't laugh, but I heard something close in his breath. He sat on the other end of the dock. Left space. No threat. Just presence. We didn't talk that night. Just sat, listening to the lake breathe. It should have been awkward, but it wasn't. The next day, the woman at the gas station warned me. "Stay clear, Dante. He's bad news." I nodded, thanked her, and left. Bad news. They used to say the same about me, after Logan's version of the breakup spread. That I was unstable, untrustworthy, too emotional, too dramatic. The problem was never him. It was always how I reacted. So I didn't care what they said about Dante. I cared how it felt sitting next to him. I cared that, for the first time, someone didn't talk over me, didn't fill the silence, just let exist. I started leaving my cabin lights off at night, just to see if he'd still come outside. He did. Some evenings we'd speak, short exchanges, weather, the lake, fishing. Others, nothing. Just two people sharing silence. He never asked about my past. I never asked about his. But I could see it in his eyes. He carried things, heavy things, like the way he'd pause before answering, as if weighing whether the truth was worth telling. One afternoon, I was walking back from the store when I heard tires screech behind me. I turned. It was Logan's car. My heart stuttered. He got out like he still owned me. Like the past 6 weeks were just a phase I was supposed to regret. "What is this?" he said, looking around. "You hiding now?" I didn't answer. He stepped closer, smiling like he used to when I was about to be scolded. "You think this place will fix you?" he whispered. "You're still you, Eric. Still the same mess." I backed away. My hands trembled. Not from fear, but from anger I wasn't used to feeling. That's when I heard the door slam across the road. Dante. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He just walked. Calm. Solid. The kind of stillness that made everything else feel loud. Logan noticed. His smirk faltered. "This your savior now?" he asked, gesturing toward Dante. "You trade up for sheriff? Or is it just another project?" Dante didn't speak. He stood beside me. Not in front of me. Not shielding. Just there. Like a line drawn in the sand. Logan scoffed. "This place changes nothing," he spat. "You'll be crawling back the second you realize who you really are." He left. Dust in his wake. No apology. No goodbye. Just like always. I stood there, heart pounding, the sound of Logan's car fading. Dante didn't look at me. Didn't ask. He just said he won't come back. Something in the way he said it made me believe him. That night, I didn't walk to the dock. I didn't need to. I opened my front door and found a small paper bag on my porch. Inside, 2 lures and a note that read, "Try the west side of the lake. Mornings are quieter there." No signature, but it didn't need one. I never thought kindness could feel so disarming. The next morning, I went to the lake. I cast a line. I didn't catch anything, but I stayed, and that was enough. Dante wasn't like anyone I had known before. Not just because of how the town reacted to him, but because of the way he held space without needing to fill it. He didn't speak unless there was something to say. He didn't ask questions to hear himself talk. And when he looked at me, it wasn't a search for something. It was like he already knew. That terrified me more than I wanted to admit. After Logan, I had learned how to stay small in conversations. How to answer questions with what I thought people wanted to hear. With Dante, there were no such games. There was no place to hide. His silence left room for me to be real, and that was the most unfamiliar feeling of all. At first, I tried to avoid him. If I heard his footsteps outside, I stayed in. If he was at the store, I came back later. It wasn't that I didn't want to talk to him. It was that I didn't trust what might happen if I did. With Logan, attention had always come with a price. I didn't know what Dante's attention meant, but I felt it even when I couldn't see him. Then came the rain. It hit suddenly one afternoon, hard and without warning. I had just stepped off the dock when the sky broke open. I ran, slipping in the mud, groceries in one arm, trying to unlock my front door with the other. The keys fell. I bent down to grab them and saw a pair of boots standing a few feet away. I didn't need to look up to know. He picked up the keys and handed them to me. Didn't say a word. Our fingers touched for less than a second, but something in me jolted. I whispered thanks, but he was already walking away, back into the storm like it didn't matter. After that, something shifted. I stopped pretending I didn't want to see him. I stopped avoiding the porch when I knew he was out. I walked slower past his fence. Left my blinds open a little longer. Sometimes he'd nod. Sometimes he wouldn't. But I noticed the way his eyes stayed on me just a little too long. One evening, I was sitting at the edge of the porch, watching the wind shake the trees. I heard gravel crunch across the road. He didn't say anything, just leaned against the wooden post on his own porch. We sat like that, across from each other, separated by 20 feet of air and years of silence neither of us had chosen. I should have gone inside. I didn't. He stayed until the light faded, then turned and went in without a word. I sat there long after, feeling like something had happened, even if nothing did. The next morning, I found a bag of nails and a hammer on my front step. My gate had been falling off its hinges. I hadn't told anyone. I didn't have to. When I looked across the road, he was gone. But I knew it was him. I fixed the gate, left the tools where I'd found them. The following night, there was a knock. Soft. Quick. I opened the door and saw a paper bag. Inside, half a loaf of bread, a can of soup, a folded note that simply read, "Storm's coming again. Keep warm." No signature. Still no words. I didn't know how to respond to that kind of care. The kind that didn't ask for anything in return. The kind that wasn't interested in owning or fixing me. It just existed. Quiet and steady. I didn't write back, but I started walking at night again, hoping he'd be out there. He was. Sometimes we stood in silence. Other times, short exchanges about the lake, the town, the weather. Never personal, but the pauses between words grew heavier. Charged. It wasn't flirting. It wasn't banter. It was something older than that, something more cautious. Like we were both holding something fragile between us and afraid to name it. I asked about his job once. He said he didn't like paperwork. That was all. He asked me about the city. I said it was loud. We didn't talk about what we were really thinking. But the air between us started changing. I noticed things. The way he always faced the road when we stood together, like he was protecting something. The way he paused before answering a question, like he was testing its weight. The way his shoulders eased slightly when I laughed, like maybe he hadn't heard that sound in a long time. I caught myself staring too long. I'd look away quickly, embarrassed. But he never flinched, never made me feel ashamed. His stillness became a kind of comfort, and that scared me more than anything. One night, I couldn't sleep. I walked to the lake just to move. Halfway there, I found him already on the dock. No flashlight, just sitting with his feet hanging over the edge. He didn't react when I approached, just patted the space beside him once. I sat. The wind pushed across the surface of the water, small ripples forming and breaking. We didn't speak for minutes. Then he said, "Do you miss it?" "What?" "The city. All of it." I hesitated. "No, I don't miss who I was in it." He nodded once. "I don't miss who I was either." That sentence lingered in the air longer than anything else that night. It settled into my chest like a truth I hadn't dared say out loud. Maybe we were both running. Maybe we were both trying to become someone new. But new wasn't easy, especially when the past kept whispering. Later that week, someone asked about me in town. I overheard it in the store. A stranger, asking too many questions, using my full name. The kind of questions Logan's people might ask. I kept it to myself. But the next evening, Dante appeared at my door. Didn't knock, just stood there until I opened. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "What?" "Someone's been asking about you. Thought you should know." My heart beat faster. "Did you talk to them?" He shook his head. "Didn't need to. Told them to leave." There was a moment of silence between us, tighter than usual. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. "Why'd you do that?" I asked. He looked at me like the answer was obvious. "Because you looked like you needed someone to." No one had ever said that to me. Not without strings. "Thank you," I said. He nodded again, then turned to leave. I reached out without thinking, fingers grazing his forearm. He paused. "I mean it," I said. He looked down at my hand. Didn't pull away. Just said, "I know." Then he left. That night, I lay awake. Not from fear. From something else. Something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Hope. The following days, we crossed paths more. Sometimes he'd leave things on my porch, coffee, a folded map with the best fishing spots marked, a book I once mentioned liking. I started doing the same. A jar of jam, a new flashlight, a thermos of tea. No notes, no expectations. It was becoming a rhythm, but something was building beneath it. A kind of tension that wasn't bad, just sharp, like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing the drop wouldn't kill you, but still not ready to jump. One evening, I found him waiting near the dock. "I've been thinking," he said. "About what?" He stared out at the water. "About the way you look at me sometimes." I froze. "I don't mind it," he added. "Just not used to it. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable." "You don't." The air thickened. My breath caught in my throat. He turned toward me. "I don't know what any of this means. I just know I don't want it to stop." I nodded slowly. "Me neither." We didn't move. We didn't touch. But that night, everything shifted. Not with a kiss. Not with confession. Just with a sentence neither of us had expected to say. The next day, I didn't see him. Or the next. Something tightened in my chest. I told myself not to panic. People had lives. But by the third evening, I walked to his house and stood on the porch, unsure if I should knock. The door opened before I decided. He looked tired. Not angry. Just distant. "Everything okay?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah. You weren't around." He leaned against the frame. Was thinking. Didn't want to rush anything. "You don't have to," I said. "We don't owe each other anything." "I know," he replied. "That's why I want to be sure." "Sure of what?" He held my gaze. "That I'm not just running again. That this is something I'm choosing." I swallowed. "And is it?" He didn't answer. "Not yet." But when I turned to leave, he said quietly, I don't want to lose whatever this is. Neither did I. And for now, that was enough. The sky was already dim when I saw him outside. Dante wasn't leaning against the post like usual. He was pacing, slowly, like he didn't know where to put the weight in his body. It wasn't a movement I'd ever seen from him before. I stood in my doorway, watching, waiting. He noticed me, stopped, then walked toward my porch like his legs made the decision without asking him first. I need to say something, he said, stopping at the bottom step. All right. He hesitated, then looked up. I think I've been living the wrong life. I didn't respond, not because I didn't want to, but because I knew this wasn't something he said easily. I gave him space to keep going. For a long time, I convinced myself I had it figured out, he continued. I did what I was supposed to. I worked, I kept quiet, I kept my head down. I followed the rules I was given, even if they didn't fit. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was staring past the trees, voice flat, but shaking at the edges. Lately, I've been wondering if the life I built was never really mine. Just something I copied because it looked right on other people. He finally looked at me again. But now you're here, and I can't unsee what I feel when I look at you. My throat tightened. I wasn't prepared. I thought I was, but I wasn't. I sat down slowly, not trusting my knees. He stepped up onto the porch and sat a few feet away, but not too close. He didn't reach for me. He didn't touch me. He just stayed there. I don't know what this makes me, he said. I don't have a word for it. I just know I feel better when I hear your voice. I sleep better when I know you're nearby. I breathe out slowly. You don't need a word. Not yet. He nodded. That scares me. Why? Because the only thing I've ever been sure of is that feelings get people hurt. Wanting something too much makes you weak. That's what I was taught. I swallowed. Me too. But I'm tired of being scared of what I want. He looked at me then, fully, like he hadn't dared do it until now. What is it you want? He asked. I thought about lying, about softening it, but I didn't. I said. He closed his eyes briefly, not in pain, in surrender. We sat like that for a long time, not speaking, but the silence between us was louder than any conversation I'd ever had. The next morning, he was gone. Not gone from town, just absent. I didn't see him that day, or the day after. The distance wasn't cruel. It felt like he was trying to breathe. I gave him space, but every minute stretched. By the third day, I left a folded note on his porch. No questions, just one sentence. I'm not asking you to change. I'm just glad I met you. He didn't reply. But that night, there was a knock on my door. Quiet, hesitant. When I opened it, he stood there. Not guarded, just bare. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside. He walked in like he wasn't sure he'd make it if he stopped moving. We sat on the floor. No drinks. No excuses. I needed time, he said. Not because I didn't mean it, but because I meant it too much. I nodded. I thought I was too old to start over, he continued. But maybe I'm just tired of pretending this isn't real. It is real, I said. He looked at me, softer than I'd ever seen. I know. I reached out, not for anything dramatic, just to rest my hand over his. He didn't move away. His fingers tightened slightly. That was all. Then something changed again. He started showing up more, helping me carry firewood, fixing the loose step, asking what I liked for breakfast, and showing up with it the next day. Not romantic, not even casual, just present, reliable in a way I'd never known. But with it came something else, restlessness. I saw in his eyes when he thought I wasn't watching, a weight he hadn't named yet. I asked once. He didn't answer. Then one night, the storm came. It wasn't just wind or rain. It was the kind that made the windows shake and the air feel wrong. I lit candles and sat near the fireplace, trying to read. I wasn't expecting the knock. He was soaked, shoulders tense, his jaw clenched like he was keeping something inside that didn't want to stay there. I pulled him in, gave him a towel. He didn't speak. We sat. The wind howled. The lights flickered. Then he whispered, I used to think needing someone meant losing yourself, that letting anyone close was just asking to be broken. I didn't move, but I don't feel lost with you. I feel like I'm finally home. I wanted to respond, but he kept going. You've been through things I can't imagine, and still you're here, still kind, still open. I don't know how you do it. I had to, I said. If I didn't let people see me, I would have disappeared. He looked down. I think I disappeared a long time ago, he said. I just didn't notice until you showed up. That sentence broke something in me. You don't have to disappear anymore, I said. He nodded. Slowly. I don't want to. Then came a moment. Not a kiss. Not a confession. Just his head resting against my shoulder. Like he needed to remember how to lean without falling. I let him stay there as long as he needed. The days that followed felt like walking on a wire. We didn't define anything, but everything was different. He started opening up in small ways, telling stories about his childhood, about how no one ever asked him what he wanted, only told him what he was good at. Fighting, fixing, following orders. No one ever told him he could choose softness. Sometimes he'd stop mid-sentence and change the subject, like he didn't trust that I wouldn't use it against him. I never pushed, but each time he returned, it felt like he trusted me more. Then the first crack came. We were walking near the edge of town when we ran into someone he knew, a man from his past. The exchange was quick, but something in Dante's posture changed. His voice dropped. His answers got short, defensive. After the man left, I asked if he was okay. He shook his head. I used to be someone else around people like that. Someone else how? Harder, colder. Someone who didn't care what damage he left behind. I stopped walking. You're not that person anymore, I said. I don't know, he replied. Sometimes I feel like he's still under my skin. You get to choose who you are now. He looked at me like he wanted to believe that. That night, he didn't come over. I waited. Try not to overthink. Try not to let the doubt creep in. But by midnight, I was outside, walking toward his place. The porch was dark. I knocked once. No answer. I turned to leave and heard his voice. I didn't want you to see me like this. I turned back. He was sitting on the floor, near the wall, knees pulled up. Like what? I asked. Like I still don't know how to be loved. My chest tightened. You don't have to be anything, I said. Just be here. He exhaled. Long tired. Isn't it strange, he said, how something so quiet can feel louder than any fight? Yeah, I said. Then I sat down beside him. And we stayed like that, breathing through the quiet. I didn't reach for him. He didn't move away. And in that stillness, I realized something I hadn't dared say until now. I wasn't just falling for him. I already had. And I think he knew. It started with the sound of tires on gravel. I didn't even look up at first. The road wasn't busy, but trucks passed sometimes, heading toward the hills. But then the engine stopped, and the silence that followed didn't feel like a break. It felt like something holding its breath. I stepped out onto the porch. He was standing at the edge of the path, right in front of the house, one hand in his coat pocket, the other holding a cup like he'd just strolled in from a cafe. Logan. The years I spent unraveling from him condensed into a second. Everything I had rebuilt inside myself braced. I didn't speak. Neither did he. Not at first. He just looked at me with that same calm certainty he always used when I was breaking down. I heard you ran off to the middle of nowhere, he said. Didn't think you'd actually stay. I didn't move. What do you want? He smiled, easy, as if this was a social visit. Just checking on you. That's allowed, isn't it? I didn't answer. He looked past me, toward the porch, scanning the house like he was calculating its value. Looks cozy. Simple. I always thought you needed something a little more polished, but maybe this suits you now. Every word he said was designed to seem harmless. That was always the game. Words sharpened by tone. Intent buried beneath pleasant delivery. He walked a little closer. I've been thinking about you. About us. You were never very good at being on your own, Eric. I figured the silence would have gotten to you by now. I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat. I knew what he was doing. He didn't come here because he missed me. He came because he hated that I left and never looked back. He needed to remind me what he thought I was worth. Still small. Still unfinished. Still his. I opened my mouth to reply, but I didn't have to. Dante stepped out from the side of the house. Not rushing, not interrupting, just walking with purpose. He didn't say a word. He stopped beside me, folding his arms, standing still, like a wall you couldn't look past. Logan's smile didn't fade, but his body reacted. A slight shift in weight. A scan of Dante's expression that didn't give him anything to work with. This your new friend? Logan asked. Dante didn't answer. His eyes stayed on Logan, steady and unflinching. Not challenging. Not protective, just present. I didn't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. There was no threat in the air, no anger. just quiet strength. I could feel Dante's calm seeping into me. And for the first time in years, Logan's words didn't land the way they used to. They fell short. Logan glanced at me again. I don't want to fight. Then don't start one, I said. He tilted his head. You've changed. I had to. There was a pause, long enough for him to decide whether to push again or retreat. He took a slow breath, and for the first time, I saw it, a flicker of something unfamiliar in his face. Uncertainty. I hope you know what you're doing, he said. I do. He looked between the two of us, then stepped back. Well, if you ever need anything, you know where I am. I didn't reply. Neither did Dante. Logan turned, walked back to his car. No anger, no insults, just silence. When the engine started again, I finally exhaled. My hands had been clenched without me noticing. I looked at Dante. He hadn't moved. Thank you, I said quietly. He turned his head. You don't have to thank me. I do. He looked away, then back again. It matters to me that people treat you with respect. That sentence hit harder than any raised voice could have. I nodded. You standing there. That meant more than anything. His jaw flexed. You're not a thing to be fixed or handled. I just wanted him to see that. He did. We stood there for a while, letting the moment breathe. The wind shifted. A bird called in the distance. The world moved forward like nothing had happened. But inside me, something solidified. Later that evening, he stayed. We didn't talk about Logan. Not directly. But when I asked if he wanted tea, he didn't say no. And when I passed him the cup, his hand lingered near mine just long enough to say everything. He sat near the window, eyes on the dark trees outside. You ever feel like the people who hurt you the most are the ones you keep hearing in your head? He asked. All the time, I said. He nodded slowly. I hate that. I hate that someone who doesn't care anymore can still echo like they live in your bones. I sat beside him. But that echo isn't permanent. Not if you stop listening to it. He didn't speak, but I saw something ease in his shoulders. You didn't say anything to him, I said. Didn't need to. He came to play a role. I didn't feel like giving him an audience. That made me smile. He turned toward me. You handled it. Because you were there. Even if I wasn't, you still could have. But I didn't want you to feel alone while doing it. I reached for his hand. This time, I didn't hesitate. He looked at our hands, then at me. He's part of your past, Dante said. Not your fault. Not your burden. Just a chapter that's over. Some chapters try to rewrite themselves, I whispered. He nodded. That's why you write better ones. We didn't kiss. We didn't lean into each other like movies would have shown. We just sat there, holding hands, letting the silence turn into something safe. The next morning, I found a small stone on my porch. Painted. Simple. One word carved into the surface. Enough. I knew it was from him. I didn't need confirmation. And for the first time, I believed it. Logan had left. Not just a road, but my mind. The grip he used to have was broken. Not shattered by confrontation or screaming matches, but loosened by quiet defiance and someone standing beside me without asking me to shrink. I spent the rest of the day in the garden, cleaning up the old beds. Dante passed by once, carrying a bundle of wood. He nodded, and I nodded back. There was nothing else to say. That evening, we shared dinner. Simple food. Shared space. He helped wash the dishes. Dried everything without being asked. Afterward, he stood near the doorway, one hand on the frame. I'm not good at talking about feelings, he said, but I think being near you makes me less afraid of them. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. He added, if he ever comes back. He won't. I interrupted. He studied me. But if he does, you won't be alone. I smiled. I know. He left after that. Not because he didn't want to stay, but because the space between us had changed. We didn't need to prove anything anymore. We already knew what this was, and what it wasn't. It wasn't manipulation. It wasn't ownership. It wasn't performance. It was presence. It was choice. It was respect. And that was more than I'd ever been given before. The night was colder than the others. Not the kind that makes you shiver, but the kind that sharpens everything. It had been quiet for days. No unexpected visits. No long talks on the porch. No gentle nods across the road. Dante had disappeared into himself again, the way he did sometimes. I didn't chase. I waited. When he finally showed up, it wasn't like before. He didn't hesitate at the edge of the steps or stand with that still posture that told me he was thinking too much. He walked straight up to my door and knocked twice. I opened it, and he just said, "Can we sit?" We walked toward the dock without saying a word. The lake reflected nothing. No stars, no moon. Just dark water holding our silence. When we reached the edge, he stopped walking. "I've been trying to figure it out," he said. "Who I am, who I'm supposed to be. But the truth is, I don't know if I'll ever have an answer." I didn't rush him. I grew up being told what strength looked like, he continued. It meant being alone, being feared, never flinching, never talking too much, never feeling anything that could be used against you. He turned to me. "But then you showed up, and you didn't need to raise your voice to be strong. You didn't need to hide what you felt to stay standing." And it made me question everything I thought I was. My chest tightened, not from sadness, but from recognition. I had waited years to hear something like this. Not just from anyone, but from someone like him. Someone who had every reason to keep it all locked inside. "I don't know what label fits," he said. "I don't know what I'd tell anyone who asked. But I know I want to be here. With you. That's the only thing I'm sure about." The wind picked up, but I didn't feel cold anymore. He looked down for a moment, then back at me. "That's not weak, is it? Wanting something that isn't violent. Something that isn't a battle." "No," I said. "It's the first real kind of strength." He nodded once, then added, "It matters to me what you think. And that scares me more than anything else." I stepped closer. "For years," I said, "I thought love came with silence, with shrinking, with being grateful for whatever pieces I was given. But now I know respect changes everything." He didn't speak, but the way he looked at me said more than words could. We sat on the dock, close but not touching. "I kept thinking you'd leave," he said. "That eventually you'd see something in me you didn't want to deal with." "I saw all of it," I said. "And I stayed." "You did." We watched the lake for a long time. There was nothing left to explain. The choice had already been made, even before either of us knew it. The next day, something shifted between us. He started coming by without reason. No food, no conversation starter. Just to sit near me while I read or swept the porch or cooked something simple. He didn't fill the air with small talk. He didn't pretend to be anyone else. He just stayed. One morning, he knocked and handed me a box. Inside was a hand-carved piece of wood with a small symbol etched into the surface. A mark I recognized from the fishing maps he used. His favorite place on the lake. "I want you to know where I go when I need quiet," he said. That was his way of letting me in. Later that week, a letter arrived for me. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Logan's. I didn't open it. I handed it to Dante and asked him to burn it. He didn't question me, just nodded, struck a match, and lit the corner of the envelope. We stood there together as the paper curled into ash. "You're not who he said you were," Dante said. "Neither are you," I replied. We both smiled small real. But peace didn't mean there were no hard days. Sometimes he'd retreat again, quiet and unreadable. Sometimes I'd get caught in old patterns, waiting for the next wound, the next betrayal, even when there was none. Healing wasn't a straight line, and neither of us pretended it was. One evening, I found him on my porch long after dark. "I panicked today," he said. "Almost told someone we're just neighbors." I looked at him. "Did you?" He shook his head. "No, but I thought about it. And then I hated myself for it." "You don't have to be perfect," I said. "I want to be better." "You already are." He stepped forward, slower this time. "I don't know how to be open and safe at the same time." I took his hand. Maybe we learned together. That was all he needed to hear. From then on, we stopped pretending. He'd reach for my hand in the middle of a sentence. I'd lean into him when we watched the sunset. We didn't announce it to the world, but we stopped hiding from ourselves. And somehow, that was more radical than any declaration. One day, he came to me with an idea. "I've been thinking about starting something," he said. "A place for kids who feel like I did. Angry, lost. Before they turn into someone they can't recognize." I didn't interrupt. "I don't know what it'll look like. Maybe just a quiet space. Maybe someone to talk to." "You'd be good at that," I said. "You think so?" I nodded. "Because you've lived it." He looked down. "I never thought my story could help anyone." "Then maybe it's time to rewrite the ending." The first meeting happened in the shed behind the general store. 3 teenagers showed up. They didn't talk much, but they stayed the full hour. That was enough. I watched him from a distance, speaking with him slowly, carefully. He didn't try to be a hero. He just listened. Afterward, he walked back to me with quiet satisfaction in his step. I think I found something worth doing, he said. You already did, I said. Just by being here. He kissed my hand that night. Nothing more. Just that. A gesture not for show, but for truth. And in that moment, I realized something I never thought I'd feel again. Not fear, not relief, but pride. Pride in who I was beside him. Pride in the version of myself that refused to disappear. Pride in the man who once believed silence was the only way to survive, now using his voice to build something better. We still had nights when the world felt uncertain. Still had moments when the past reached for us with cold fingers. But we didn't face them alone, and we never would again. Because now we knew the difference between being seen and being used. Between being wanted and being owned. Between being feared and being respected. He wasn't perfect. I wasn't either. But we were honest. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything.